Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the 9 p.m. English News Edition. Here are the top stories. The Prime Minister inspects the observance of sanitary measures in the building and public works sectors. In international news, WHO warns of a second wave in Europe this winter. Hello, welcome to our newsroom for having the news in details. The General Secretary of Health, Dr. Sanah Bonita Turab, has made his statement at the daily press briefing on the situation of COVID-19. The situation of the pandemic in Djibouti is as follows: 228 tests performed, 22 cases positive to COVID-19. 15 cases cured. The measures planned at the level of health centers and hospitals will be reinforced by the compulsory wearing of a mask and systematic hand washing for consulting and accompanying persons. It is important to stress that no consultant and accompanying person will be admitted to a health structure without a medical or a craft mask. However, the chain of community transmission of the COVID-19 virus in a lasting and definitive way will inevitably pass through the application of the government's instruction in terms of protection and prevention of the infection. In terms of the overall balance, 17,106 tests were carried out, 1,331 positive cases of COVID-19, 950 confirmed cases cured. 4 deaths in total. Please stay at home. The Prime Minister paid an unexpected visit this morning to the various building sites, including that of 440 housing CEC in Salama buildings, 840 Biniya housing of the Mauritanian company, and finally the Moroccan company FEPCO 160 hectares in Balbala South. In accordance with Article 7 of the decree dated 10 May 2020, this visit allowed the Prime Minister to supervise the construction work and see if the workers apply the strict rules of the confinement, which is wearing of masks to protect themselves and limit the spread of the epidemic. To this end, the Prime Minister visited the construction sites and saw to it that the health measures prescribed by the health public authorities were strictly adhered to. Now, the Ministry of Health and Interior, accompanied by the Director General of Civil Defense, took part yesterday following the disinfection operation, being on the scene of the disinfection operation in the Big Riyadh market. Teams from the INSS and Fire Brigade took part in this major disinfection operation of public places to fight against the spread of coronavirus. With a backpack sprayer equipped with coveralls, these experts use a biocide product that complies with international standards and has a primary biodegradability of at least 90%. These places where supply and demand meet on a daily basis undergo an operation whose objective is to reduce and eliminate the risks of coronavirus contamination. The markets, these places of dense proximity, are in turn completely cleaned and then sprayed. The operation consists not only in disinfecting, but also in disinfecting and, above all, a means of fighting against insalubrity. Members of the government present formally sensitized stores, managers, and other customers present on site to respect the rules in the face of the coronavirus. Now, the Minister of Health recalled that it is important that the population must respect the measures enacted by the authorities to deal with the spread of COVID-19. All shopkeepers or those responsible for the shops in the Riyadh market must wear masks and respect social distancing. The population should not take all this lightly. He and the Minister of Interior reminded us that the disinfection operations are going well thanks to the INSS technician and the Fire Brigade. These places where supply and demand meets on daily basis must undergo this operation, the objective of which is to reduce and eliminate the risk of coronavirus contamination. As part of the solidarity action undertaken to mitigate the effects of measures to combat the COVID-19 epidemic, a delegation led by the Secretary of State for the Decentralization, Hamidou Mohamed Aramis, jointly with the Department of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity, visited yesterday at Genno in the Obak region. This village is located at the extreme northwestern tip of the country, in the heart of the territory, with a climate as harsh and difficult as Garabtisan. The minister in charge of decentralization, accompanied by representatives of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Solidarity and the Ministry of Health, was welcomed by the Prefect of Obok, Abdul Malik Mohamed Banoita, and the Sub-Prefecture of Alayli Dada, Mr. Ahmed Ali Omar, and the Minister and Mr. Ahmed, the Vice President of the Regional Council of Obok. I came to inquire about your situation at the beginning of this summer, and in this period of containment decided to block the road of the spread of coronavirus, and I have the honor to give you a food donation from the steering committee for the management of this health crisis, said the Secretary of State for Decentralization, Hamidou Mohamed Aramis, whose words followed those of the prefect and the representative of the Regional Council of Obok. The latter had also agreed with this. It should be noted that Dr. Ibrahim Mohamed Dembio, Chief Medical Officer in Obok, had presented the delegation to Genno with his mobile team, and it was in the shade of an acacia tree that Dr. Dembio and his nurses were able to give consultation to those who expressed the need. At Genno, located far from urban centers and roads in a difficult and rural territory, suffers from its geographical situation. Friday's meeting and the short meeting with the traditional chiefs provided an opportunity for both sides to review the main difficulties encountered by the population: access to water, health care, food aid, etc. The meeting also provides an opportunity to discuss the situation of the population in the region. The authorities took note of the grievances and undertook the increased number of meetings of this type so that the difficult resilience of this population hit hard by the climate change does not amount to resignation. And now, in order to combat the spread of the COVID-19, still in Djibouti, a commission comprising a network of young leaders from different areas of the capital and officials from the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport has carried out joint action in the field, particularly among shopkeepers. The aim was to remind shopkeepers in particular why it is imperative to respect the barrier justice and preventive measures implied by the presidential decree. Indeed, it goes without saying that at a time when we were approaching this stage of the confinement, it is vital to continue to respect preventive justice such as wearing masks, washing hands, and social distancing. With this in mind, the youth sponsored by the SEGS, Hassan Mohamed Kamil, proceeded to distribute masks and gloves to the target population. That is so to say that the shopkeepers who can play this pivotal role in the spread of the virus by contact. This vast awareness campaign launched by the CAGS is part of the national fight against COVID-19, initiated under the leadership of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Al-Hajj Ismail Omar Guelleh. It will continue in the field close to the population in order to prevent and make our fellow citizens aware of this highly contagious disease. Now, the Youth Association at the Finatu organized an awareness day for the inhabitants of the Finatu before the confinement bell rang in the Republic. Following the confinement and that we are finally at the phase of Ramadan, the inhabitants will go to the capital for its needs for the Eid al-Fitr. The purpose of this awareness for the confinement is to respect the rules that has been decreed by the government, to avoid gatherings, to respect the distances of 1 meter, to avoid contact, wearing a mandatory mask when traveling or in the car to protect yourself from all transmissible disease, washing your hands every hour with soap. The inhabitants of the Finatu answered yes to implement so that they will not be infected by the COVID-19, and thanked infinitely the AGD who was moved from the capital to the Finatu to sensitize the inhabitants of the Finatu. The team of the Permanent Patrol of the Coast Guard, in close collaboration with the teams of the National Navy, intercepted during the night of yesterday at 2 a.m. in the area between the north of Musha Island and Godoria 3 Galba-type boats coming from Somalia and carrying more than 1,000 cartons of different brands of contraband cigarettes. Four crew members of Yemeni nationality, including the pilot, were arrested during this operation and will have to answer for their action before the courts. This contraband project of more than 1,000 cartons, each containing 50 packages, were intended to be illegally sold in the local market in order to weaken the national economy by creating unfair competition. The Coast Guard, in conjunction with the National Navy, continues to multiply their joint effort to put an end to the activities of these smugglers who aim at destroying the dazzling economic development of our country. The investigation has been entrusted to the Coast Guard's Research, Investigation and Judicial Affairs Brigade, and smuggled goods are being seized at the fishing port pending a court decision. Moving now on the international news, the WHO. This is a strong warning from the WHO Regional Director for Europe as restrictions are eased on the continent. Hans Kluge warns in an interview with the Telegraph the coronavirus will return this winter, a second wave that could be even more terrible than the first because it will be associated with other seasonal epidemics such as influenza. In the United Kingdom, the second most beloved country in the world, with nearly 35,000 deaths, the government is defending its policy of easing restrictions despite a reproduction rate that remains worrying. Matt Hancock, the Secretary of State for Health, has announced that it is currently between 0.7 and 1. And authorities hope to deploy a tracking application by the end of the month to warn people who have been in contact with patients. In Spain, where the majority of the population is being released in stage from one of the strict confinement, the capital will have to wait at least another week before a real relaxation. Madrid continues to record the highest number of daily contamination with Catalonia. COVID-19 has caused more than 27,000 deaths in Spain. This is it for this edition of 9 p.m. Thank you for watching us and have a wonderful night.